God of love, God of knowledge and of wisdom, we pause in your presence to acknowledge your awesomeness, and we thank you for your continued grace and mercy towards us. In this forum of deliberations, Lord, we seek the guidance of your Holy Spirit to direct our thoughts, to inspire us afresh. Allow your Spirit to reignite us with the flames of passion for this sector. We pray that everything will be done to your glory and to your honor. Guide today's proceedings and receive them unto your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Remain standing. We'll have the national anthem of St. Kitts and Nevis. Please be seated. Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley. Deputy Premier and Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. Cabinet members, the Honorable Eric Evelyn and the Honorable Spencer Brand. Colleague permanent secretaries. I also want to recognize permanent secretary from the federal government in the Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Ron Dublin Collins. I want to recognize our featured speaker for this evening, this morning as well, Mr. Mackie McLevin-Truss. Members of staff, both on St. Kitts and Nevis, allied partners from AICA and CARDI, farmers, staff members, good morning and welcome. On behalf of the Ministry of Agriculture, I am happy to welcome all of you, our farmers, partners, stakeholders, to this, the third in our agenda series, Agenda 2021. This event was commissioned by Deputy Premier and Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, in 2019 as a means to both be deliberate and accountable in our actions as it relates to activities in the agriculture sector. 2020 was a challenging year for all, and I reference it only because we would have talked food security for a number of years. And during 2020, it showed us how serious we need to be about food security. It is so much more than just lip service or planting just because we can. Our people demand food at an average of about 3 times per day. So it implies that we have to be committed and consistent in our production. This is a time when we need serious people to do the work and to meet the nutritional needs of our people, which brings me to our theme for today. Reigniting the passion and the trust as we ensure food security. Passion is the attitude and energy we adopt to undertake our task, and we need to have trust in our institutions and our people, as well as our fellow producers. I'll be the first to say the agriculture sector has been underfunded and poorly supported by successive administrations, not only in Nevis, but across the region. Last year, there was a recognition of the fact that in order to ensure that our people's food needs are met, we must be in control of our production. In 2020, as challenging as it was, customs figures show we imported near $20 million worth of food. And this is not just food overall. This is food items that can be produced on Nevis. Imagine if 5 to 10 million of that stayed in our economy. The Nevis Island administration for 2021 would have increased the allocations for agriculture, and we are grateful. However, I know many will still say it's not enough. To you, Honorable Premier and Minister Jeffers, I thank you for your encouragement. And I pledge we will seek to do as the servant in the Bible did, who had 5 talents, and seek to multiply what we have received. Once again, I welcome all of you to this location and those joining us online as well as local Nevis television. Thank you and welcome again. I now invite some remarks from Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary and Master of Ceremonies. Pleasant good morning to one and all. I want to start this morning by adopting the protocol that was ably established by the Chairperson and Permanent Secretary. But indeed, that would be an easy way out. And instead of taking that route, let me be official as well by first of all recognizing the Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley. I want to recognize as well the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry and Department of Agriculture, St. Kitts, Mr. Ron Dublin Collins. Also with us are other members of the Nevis Island Administration, ministers that is, Minister Evelyn and Minister Brand. I want to also recognize all of the Permanent Secretaries who are here, directors, meaning Director of Agriculture from St. Kitts, Director of Agriculture from Nevis, and I also want to recognize at the head table the featured speaker for today, Mr. Mackie McClevin Tross. In the audience as well, I see we have a number of well-wishers who would have come from our local representatives of the various international and regional bodies that we are affiliated with, ICA, CARDI, I'm not seeing anyone from the FAO, but at least I can say this is being streamed, so I'm certain that persons are logged on who are well-wishers of the work that we are doing here as an island and as a nation. I want to recognize the entire contingent that would have come from the Federal Ministry and Department of Agriculture, and today is a first in the sense that I do not believe there was an occasion where a contingent would have visited us at this particular activity that we are having this morning. So I want to welcome all of you, and it is testimony of the type of relationship that we are seeking to foster between the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, and here in the Federation on a whole. So I want to welcome one and all. I want to welcome all those who are listening and viewing as well, because these days, with all of the necessary protocols that are in place with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic that we're facing, we would have loved to have a huge audience here this morning, and I know many of our farmers would have loved to be here, but we are limited by numbers, and thus the reason why we have just a few persons. But nevertheless, when there are 2 or 3 gathered, the Bible says there he is in the midst of us. So we have the Lord in our midst, and we do know that all stakeholders are keenly interested in what is going on here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say this morning, this is the 3rd hosting of Agenda, well, it is Agenda 21 this year, but as we go along, the years will continue to grow, because it is an activity that we feel is important to lay the groundwork for our work throughout the calendar year that we are currently in. We started this, as was mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, back in 2019. And of course, over the last 3 years, we have seen the results of our efforts. and I want to commend the permanent secretary, the rectors, and also supervisors and all who would have been associated with this particular activity over the years. In 2020, just about the same time last year, we met at NIPAC. And I want to say I was not there because I believe I was experiencing COVID then, but whatever it was, I had the flu then and couldn't be a part of that activity. And of course, the reviews were excellent, of course. But I highlighted that because in 2020, when we started out that year, we had high hopes. We laid the groundwork for what we thought was going to be a successful year, not knowing what was before us within the next month or two. By late February, March, we had to change up all of the plans that we would have put in place in January of 2020. And you know, it's not a bad thing, because there is a saying that planning prevents you from stumbling into the future backwards. Because we had a plan in January 2020, it therefore means we were able to ramp up our production. We were able to increase our effort and galvanize the efforts of our stakeholders to ensure that we can face the situation that we encountered in March. So in March of 2020, with the assistance from the Cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration and the efforts of the Ministry and Department of Agriculture, we were able to put in place a stimulus package that was utilized throughout the year 2020. We would have seen some tremendous results as a consequence of that. And later on, you'll hear some of the exploits we would have heard from what we would have had from the Director of Agriculture when it comes to give you some positive reviews and reports of 2020. This activity, though, is not so much about going back per se, but looking forward. COVID-19 would have certainly presented us with some unexpected opportunities and realities. Opportunities to increase production, of course. Opportunities to engage our stakeholders in a way that we have never done before. Opportunities to engage our local representatives and allied agencies. We were able to work in a harmonious fashion to ensure that some of the difficulties that we envisioned as a result of COVID-19 was somewhat mitigated, because we were able to ensure that our farmers receive the necessary seeds and seedlings. We offered free plowing, we offered fertilizers, we offered assistance as well to our farmers on their farms in terms of workers from the Department of Agriculture who would have gone on these farms and given a day's work, a week's work, in order to ensure that production was increased. We also engage our livestock farmers to ensure that their animals or their livestock was healthy, so that we had a reasonable and a healthy food system to depend on. Of course, our fisher folks benefited as a result. Many times we speak and we talk about crop agriculture or livestock farming, but we somehow neglect to speak about our fisher folks and the exploits that they have had in the fishing industry. They also benefited from the stimulus package that we would have introduced last year. We provided them with free fish pot wires, equipment, and the like. And I want to thank the Federal Ministry and Department of Agriculture and Department of Marine Resources as well for ensuring that some of the items that were distributed in St. Kitts also made their way to Nevis. And that would have been to the benefit of our fisher folks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this activity, like I said, is a means of looking forward. Never before in our history have we ever seen such a situation where we have had to change our whole attitude towards agriculture. In the past, we have had a lot of glowing talks about agriculture. It was on the lips of our people, but the action didn't actually match our speech and our talk, our discourse. But of course, we have seen since 2020 that there is urgency of now. Now is the time to plant more. Now is the time to engage more. Now is the time to ensure that we are providing the nutritious food that our people needs, so as to ensure that we are cultivating healthy communities. Now is also the time for us to ensure that we are putting ourselves in a position to eliminate any difficulties and distress that may be caused if we were to have a similar situation or a more acute situation that could develop in the future. We have heard that other countries have been doing so much to revitalize agriculture or strengthen their agricultural economy. We now in the Federation would have to do likewise. Because of course we want to ensure that if we are able to feed ourselves for a year or more, it therefore means that we're moving towards what we consider quote unquote import substitution. We cannot go about our business depending on other countries to feed us anymore. We have to find our way to feed ourselves. And that is why these activities are important, to engage our stakeholders, to engage the general public, and to ensure that all of us are on board in our effort to ensure that we are providing a strong and vibrant agricultural economy here in Nevis and by extension the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I normally talk without a script because I don't think agriculture requires any sophisticated terms to get the message across. The simple message that we want to provide you with is that we as a people have to grab hold of our own destiny. We have to ensure that we are doing the things to feed ourselves and feed our family and ensure that our well-being is well secured for the future to come. I want us to understand that our livestock extension officers must work closely with our livestock farmers. The veterinary services must work closely with our livestock farmers as well. The abattoir must continue to produce the quality and quantity of products that they're producing currently and also introduce new products. Our fisher folks must understand that they must conduct their business and conduct their activities in a sustainable way so that our marine life will be there for future generations to come. I would also want to say even the agro-processing unit must be engaged fully to ensure that we're utilizing all of the products that we're producing here and find a way to produce jams and jellies, concentrates, juice, and all those things that are nutritious and healthy for our well-being in the future. So all of the various sectors of the agricultural economy must be working cohesively. We must be working as partners to ensure that collectively we are having, at least building an agriculture infrastructure that would provide us with the security and sustainability that we seek to achieve now and in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say at this point in time that the theme that was selected for today is a very important one: reigniting the passion and trust as we ensure food and nutrition security. It's a very simple theme. It is a very powerful theme. It is a theme that we all can embrace to ensure that even some of us as backyard farmers can do the things that we, from an administration standpoint, is trying to achieve. And globally, what we are trying to achieve is to eliminate hunger and poverty. And that is something that we don't want to exist in this federation ever. We have the resources, we have the tools, let us put them to good use. I want to wish this activity well this morning. I want to thank all of you for coming and all who are listening, and I want us to continue to build on those principles that we have been talking about. Let us eat locally, grow what we eat and eat what we grow, and let food be our medicine and let our medicine be our food. I love putting it in that context, and it's as simple as that. I want to thank you for listening. I will be here until the end, and of course, I'll make my contribution as we go along, and I'm hoping that we'll have similar contributions from you as an audience. Thank you very much for listening. May God bless us all. Thank you.
I want to thank Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, for his remarks. He touched on some very important points, and I urge us all to consider them as we go forward. At this time, I want to invite Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, to address us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take the opportunity to recognize the head table, specifically the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, our prominent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture here in Nevis, Mr. Huey Sargent, and of course our guest speaker, Mr. Truss. Let me also welcome my very good friend, Bishop Ron Collins. I teased him because we pressed him into service to say a prayer, but who better to pray for us than a bishop? So Ron Collins, welcome to Nevis and your entire team. Let me recognize as well my cabinet colleagues and all of you who are here and who are all stakeholders and people invested in agriculture. Agriculture is something that is near and dear to me. It is perhaps the abiding lesson of the COVID-19 pandemic that we decided as a government that we no longer could just pay lip service to agriculture. That there was a need, in fact an urgent need, that we became self-sufficient in terms of our food supply. And that is a goal that we have set for ourselves, and the limited resources that we had available to us at the Nevis Island Administration, we decided that the majority of those resources should be put to agriculture. And I can tell you that in the cabinet that I'm privileged to lead at this point in our history, we had a very robust discussion, and the concern that we had in our cabinet was, what happened if the pandemic got to a point where tropicals stopped coming? And if tropicals stopped coming over at the Long Point port or at the port in St. Kitts, what would happen to us? And it's a very real concern. It may sound simple, but it's a very real concern. And so we decided then and there that the resources that we had available had to be put towards greater food security. And I'm very proud of the effort that we've made thus far. And my purpose for being here as the Premier of Nevis is to say that if there's one thing we've learned from COVID, and one lesson that we might take away, is that we must be more self-sufficient in terms of our food supply. That the dependence that we've had over the years on imported food, sometimes of dubious quality, that we must try our best to replace those imports with locally produced food. And I believe that the Minister Jeffers, has the necessary dynamism. In fact, he has now taken on the role of Federal Minister of Agriculture, and I think we're now seeing the synergies between St. Kitts and Nevis that ought to serve us well going forward. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what did we do? We provided a package to our farmers. We said we would have free seeds, free seedlings, free fertilizer, free water. We provided free land preparation. We went so far as to provide free fencing wire. To our farmers, we provided feed. We provided to our fishers fish pot wire. We tried in various ways to provide the tools that our farming community would need to enhance production. We did something also which was perhaps unusual, innovative. We offered the same concessions to what we call our backyard farmers. So if you had a little piece of land that you were doing something, not commercially, we said that you had a contribution to make as well. And so even those individuals were allowed to benefit. It came at a cost. But as the PS here has said, naturally we must invest if we must get a return. And while he complained that the investment wasn't sufficient, I reminded him that to whom much is given, much is expected. And so if he got more, we would expect more. But he has put it correctly. That just like the biblical admonition, we must do what we can with what we get. And so the money that has been allocated to agriculture this year, we are hopeful that those professionals who serve us in agriculture, both those in government and those in the private sector, can use those resources to get us closer to where we want to be, which is sustaining ourselves in terms of food. I believe that this particular event, the third year now, is an important event. It demonstrates the innovation that we're seeing from the minister and his team, because it tells us that early in each year we have an opportunity to bring stakeholders together to discuss not only where we were, where we are, but also where we hope to be insofar as agriculture is concerned. And I think that that is important. It demonstrates that agriculture is taking its rightful place as an important undertaking for us as an island and as a country. I am hopeful that in my lifetime we can get to a point where we would have substituted most of these imports that we get now that we will get to a point where our people are truly eating local, buying local. And I want to take a moment to just emphasize that. Speakers before me have touched on it. But our farming community and our farmers in particular are looking to farming as a livelihood. They need to feed their families. They need to send their children to school. The only way they can do that is if we as a people buy their produce. And it irks me, I confess, when I see substandard produce in the supermarkets being sold ahead of our locally produced fruits and vegetables. Just yesterday I had a conversation with someone who said to me, you go to our supermarkets, you see grapes, apricots, peaches. You see any mango? Any guineas? Any local fruit? If you see oranges, tell yourself that they're imported. We have to get to a consciousness in our country where we say we must substitute our own for those imports. As I look across the audience here, I see someone like Mr. Lupinacci. Mr. Lupinacci, welcome. Richard Lupinacci. He's been a friend of agriculture for a very long time. And one of the things that I've always admired about him, I had not intended to include in my comments until I saw you, but since I've seen you, is that he's the proprietor of the Hermitage restaurant, and they pride themselves in terms of their menu in utilizing local products. So if you go there for their famous Wednesday night pig roast, tell yourself the pig is not from Miami. The pig might be from down the road. Local pig. I think these things are important, and our people have demonstrated that where the necessary stimulus is given, where the necessary encouragement is given, that we can make progress. We look at what we've done thus far with pork production, for example. Yes, there's more that can be done. Yes, we still have a problem that pork is coming into the country and is being sold more cheaply sometimes than our local pork. But I think our people need to get to a level of consciousness where they say, you know, even if that pork that comes in from Brazil or wherever is 50 cents cheaper, I know that the quality that I'm getting in Nevis is vastly superior. And as a result of that, I'm prepared to pay the extra 50 cents for the better quality and to support my brother or sister down the road who's depending on that to feed his family. And that is really how we have to look at it. We need really a renaissance in terms of our thinking, in terms of our approach, to ensure that our people support our local farmers, so that farmers do not have the problem that they have complained about of producing and then having their food rot because they have no market. And in that regard, I can tell you that my government is very serious about talking to our hotels, talking to our restaurants, talking to our supermarkets, and saying to them that if product is available locally, then that must get first preference. I think it's a very simple thing, that the big hotels must follow the example of the Hermitage, that people coming in to visit with us, to vacation with us, actually would like to taste what we have available on the island, the local product, because it is superior in quality. If you go to the supermarket right now, you pick up a piece of chicken, you pick up some beef, you pick up a piece of fruit. Most of us, maybe some of you are more conscious than I am, but most of us, let me speak for myself, I have no idea where that piece of chicken or piece of fruit came from. I have no idea how long ago it was produced. Sometimes, you know, the supermarkets are clever, they stamp on it fresh. But fresh when? It might have been fresh 2 weeks ago. When, on the other hand, we produce something locally, you drive by, you see the farmer at work in the river, at potworks, you see them. You can even see the crops as they come up from planting to maturity. You know and understand what it is you're getting. But we have to support our local farmers. I will end by speaking for a moment about the innovation that we have been seeing in agriculture. I see that Mr. Truss is here, Mackie, my good friend. And he has really been a pioneer and a leader in that area. Because what I'm seeing now is that our traditional farmers, farming in the traditional way, 2 acres of land, plowing, drip lines, the usual. But we're also seeing farmers now who are saying, listen, we want to use more technology. We want to use hydroponics. We want to use the shade house technology. And we are told that the shade houses can produce quite a substantial amount with a smaller footprint in terms of land space. So on an island the size of Nevis, where naturally land is limited, shade house technology might really provide us with a good solution to ramp up production without having to have thousands and thousands of acres of land available. And Mackie has led that charge, but what I have seen happening is that a lot of young people now, young university graduates, you know, when I was a boy, they say only old people used to go into agriculture. I'm sure all of you have heard it, so I'm not saying anything that is bad or wrong. That is how we were taught. As a boy, I was born on Hanley's Road. If I ever dared to tell my mother that I wanted to be a farmer, she would beat me from now till next Sunday. Because the idea was that farming was hard work, it was backbreaking work, it was work that didn't give any reward. We need to change that. And when I see youngsters fresh out of university coming back and saying, listen, I'm getting into farming as a commercial venture, because when we look at the numbers, we look at the level of importation, we look at the dollar value, we start to understand that farming has money in it. The PS said that most of us have 3 meals a day. Some have more than 3. But most of us have 3 meals a day. Imagine, therefore, that food, like air, like water, critical to our survival. So if you're in the production of something that is critical for your survival, it tells you that people would buy it. And so farming is a natural commercial undertaking. And when I look at and I hear the numbers, $20 million of food. And these are foods, not the peaches and the apricots, but foods that we can produce being imported. And you start to think about it and say that the largest companies in the Federation, some of them are not generating $20 million worth of sales in a year. So if you put that in context and you say $20 million worth of food, what if you can slowly chip away at that? Next year we bring it down to 18, next year down to 15, and then to 10. You realize that you have $10 million circulating in our local economy. $10 million in the pockets of our local farmers. You could imagine what the multiplier effect of that could be for Little Nevis or Little St. Kitts and Nevis. That is the way we must start to think. And when we talk to our youngsters, rather than doing what my mom did years ago and tell you that's hard work and you're not going to make any money, to start to help them to understand that farming can provide a livelihood, farming can be something that is commercially viable. And I believe that the government is more than prepared to provide the necessary support in that regard. So I end by encouraging all of you. I want you to have a good conference today. Regrettably, I will not be able to stay with you all day, but I certainly had to be here so that you understand that from the top of government and all the way through, agriculture is important to us, food security is important to us, nutritious food is important to us, and we must not lose the lesson of COVID-19, that we must produce more, eat more, buy local, eat local, and support our agricultural industry. So I wish Agenda 2021 all the success, and I want to thank all the workers in agriculture. I know sometimes you feel perhaps unappreciated. I want you to know that you are appreciated. Extension officers, livestock officers, all of you, veterinary officers who go out and make this possible, that we will continue to provide every support that we can to ensure that Nevis and the wider Federation get to a point where we are sustainable and self-sufficient in terms of food. Thank you, and may God bless all of you.
I want to thank Premier Brantley for his timely remarks. They're quite sobering, and please be assured, sir, I'll be leaning on some of those words that you say, so that at this time, we're continuing nicely. At this time, we now invite a presentation from Mr. McLevon Mackey Truss, who will put certain things into perspective for us.
Let me teach you what, Thank you, P.S. Sergeant. I'm very pleased, heartened, as a matter of fact, by the presence of the policy makers in the audience here this morning. It tells me that I have good ears in the audience. Mr. Chairman, I'm seeking your permission, sir, to adopt the protocol. Thank you. Please permit me to acknowledge members of the head table. On my immediate left, P.S. Huey Sergeant. Next to him is my good friend and Honorable Premier, Mark Brantley. Then we have Minister Jeffers, Honorable Deputy Premier, and Minister of Agriculture in the Federal Parliament and in the Nevis Island Assembly. I would say good morning to all. I'm very pleased and honored to have been asked to be a featured speaker here this morning. I'm especially pleased, like I said, with the composition of the audience, a good cross-section of the community. While I was preparing myself to address you this morning, I came across a quote that our family chaplain, my sister who was sitting back there, Jennifer Clark, sent in the family chat. It reads, "You cannot go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." That was scripted by C.S. Lewis. So let us start here in this very forum this morning. It is important to note that agriculture is the main source of national income for most developing countries, St. Kitts and Nevis being one of them. Agriculture goes beyond farming. It has evolved over the years to include fruit production, beekeeping, poultry, and dairy products. Moreover, agriculture processing, marketing, distribution of crops, livestock products are all acknowledged as part of modern-day agriculture. In addition to providing food and raw materials, agriculture provides employment opportunities for a large portion of the population. Today's theme, reigniting the passion and trust as we ensure food and nutrition security. How fitting. Mr. Chairman, the passion is burning. I pause at this time to pay homage to our dedicated farmers, some of whom has gone to the great beyond. And those farmers who are still in our midst and are plying their trade day in, day out, sun or rain, for 20, 30, even 40 plus years. I pay homage to them at this time. I'm very delighted to know that some of our youth have stepped up to the plate and invested large sums of money and human capital in greenhouse and shade house technology. They have and are demonstrating that they have the passion and the desire to learn the art of farming and put fresh, nutritious food on our tables on a daily basis. On the contrary, trust is seemingly lacking. It needs a lot more coals, is Raviera, and some fanning to reignite that trust if we are to ensure food and nutrition security. Mr. Chairman, it is against this backdrop that I start my discourse. I will begin with collaboration. We hear these words all the time. We often hear phrases like, we have to have an integrated approach. Well, in my view, the Ministry, Department of Agriculture, the various cooperatives, farmers, retailers, hoteliers, and consumers must be singing from the same hymn sheet. They may be in different churches. We have a unique situation right now in St. Kitts and Nevis, where our Deputy Premier is the Minister of Agriculture in the federal government and in the Nevis Island administration. Mr. Minister, we have the opportunity to capitalize on the gains made by both ministries and departments federally and locally. No longer can we have the permanent secretaries and directors going in opposite direction. That has to stop. No longer can we have extension officers using the office to get classified information and use it to compete and undercut the farmers. That as well has to stop. The role of the extension officers, as I understand it, is to educate and provide guidance to the farmer. Mr. Pierce, please correct me if I'm wrong. That brings me to my next point, education. In order for one to do farming, whether it's vegetable farming or livestock farming, there are three, maybe more, essential things to consider. The availability of land. It's a little scarce, and it won't get any better in St. Kitts and Nevis, but we have. The knowledge and type of farming and the ways to utilize the land for its improvement. I think we need a little bit more knowledge, or the knowledge needs to be disseminated to the farmers, but I'll get back to that. Capital resources for the purchase of tools, seeds, livestock, fertilizers, animal feed, and the list go on and on. I think we could use some capital. So what really is holding back the progress of agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis, one may ask? The answer can very well be the inability to put the crucial information in the hands of the farmers to really empower each farmer to make the right decisions about their farm, and let them be the ones, let the farmers be the ones to implement the changes necessary to ensure the progress of agriculture in St. Kitts and Nevis. If the information does not reach the farmer cannot correct the mistakes, and he cannot move and improve his farm. There is a need to educate our farmers on the use of proper record and bookkeeping, crop yields estimation, cost of production, return on investment calculations. This can be achieved through the Small Enterprise Development Unit, the Department of Agriculture, maybe those same extension officers. We must utilize our allied agencies, IECA, CADI, Taiwanese, and FAO, if we do not have the necessary skill sets in-house. Mr. Chairman, farmers aren't the only ones who are in need of knowledge on the importance of agriculture, but the entire nation, from the preschoolers all the way up. That's where we should start, at preschool. The landscape of our farmers is changing. Farmers are entrepreneurs, yes, business people who are responsible for feeding our nation and must be treated with dignity and respect. The farmer now is not the farmer 50 years ago. The farmer now, like the Premier said, is a university graduate. When you look at the numbers, $20 million, there's no business around here that is generating $20 million. Farming could definitely transform Nevis. Water is life, and I'll add something to that. Water is life, and so is food. So take that seriously. We must establish a research and development department which would play a critical role in the sustainability of agriculture. More human resources is needed in this area. I skip now to technology. Opportunities to lift productivity in agriculture sector lie in new and emerging technologies. We need to utilize the use of technology in agricultural practices. Technology can provide the agricultural industry with tools and information to make more informed decisions to improve productivity. Technology include digital agriculture, greenhouse production, hydroponic practices, exploring of tissue culture, etc. Let me expound a little bit on digital agriculture because some of you might be a little confused here. Digital agriculture is the use of digital technology to integrate agricultural production from the farm to the consumer. Tools such as moisture measuring devices, timers, irrigation lines, software on yield production per seed, new packaging material, animal monitors, and digital devices to measure the precision application of water and chemicals. These are some of the things that digital agriculture encompasses. Digital technologies have the potential to provide farmers with the information and ability to meet these challenges and seize the opportunities for growth. But it is not just about farmers. Consumers, both at home and abroad, are becoming more informed about the products they buy and eat. They demand high-quality products, high-quality foods, and want to know more about where the products come from and what are in them. Digital technology can enable improved traceability of agricultural products, providing peace of mind for the consumers and increased value for the farmers. These new technologies can enable us to adapt to an ever-changing environment. That ever-changing environment, believe it or not, is climate change. It's real. While demand is set to grow, farmers are facing challenges of changing climate, increased temperatures, changes in rainfall patterns, more frequent extreme weather events, reduction in water availability. I'm talking about drought, some serious droughts. We need to adopt new and innovative ways to mitigate challenges of climate change on agriculture in order to improve productivity to meet the ever-growing demand. Protective agriculture, greenhouse, shadehouse technology must be encouraged. Thank you, Mr. Minister. It is my understanding that the Ministry of Agriculture is in the process of procuring some greenhouses to assist farmers in St. Kitts and Nevis. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Minister of Agriculture and his technical team for their wisdom and foresight. To invest in this way is showing real commitment. It gives farmers the impetus they need to forge ahead to ensure food and nutrition security. Some of the advantages of greenhouses. It reduces the use of water by up to 50%. Well, at least 50%. Improves the quality of produce while utilizing less land. Higher yields per square foot, which increase profitability. Protection against some of the elements, pests and diseases as well. Reduce labor costs on the same footprint. Yes, I must acknowledge that the startup capital could be daunting, but I can assure you that the return on the investment is truly worth it. This brings me to finance. We must find ways to provide financing for our farmers at low cost of interest. We are asking our governments to use our local institutions, the Development Bank, our credit unions, the small enterprise development units to bridge the gap. The commercial banks have no use for us at this time. I am well aware that there is a revolving fund for startup of micro businesses, but we need to expand that. Case in point. 100 by 30 foot greenhouse, fully furnished, call it turnkey, ready to go, is about $150,000. Finance and insurance go together. Personal example. I've been in greenhouse technology now for over 10 years. During that 10 years, I've contacted every insurance company in St. Kitts and Nevis, and all came back with the same thing. Large sums of monies are being invested in agriculture. However, if you think that the commercial banks are a problem, well, the insurance companies are telling us the risk is too high. I have to ask the question, which is a higher risk? The risk of not having food or the risk of insuring a farm? Let me ask you again. What is a higher risk? You see where I'm going with this, right? Thank you. The truth is, we have to find a way to mitigate the losses to our farms and crops against the violent weather conditions. The establishment of a disaster relief fund in lieu of non-insurance is one such idea, but the conversation would have to continue. Pricing of produce. I look around and I do not see anybody from the grocery stores, but they'll get the message somehow. The grocery store operators and local vendors must be more responsible with their pricing of locally produced agricultural products. Ladies and gentlemen, it boggles my mind to see a pound of plum tomatoes that is bought at a wholesale price of $3.50 attracts a retail price of $8 and $9. A pound of colored sweet pepper, whether it be yellow, red, or orange, sold by the farmer for $5, attracts a retail price of $12 to $17, depending on whether it's Monday, Wednesday, or Sunday. This practice has to stop. Our farmers are getting a bad name because they're blaming us for the high prices. I make an appeal to the grocery store owners in a different light now, hoteliers and vendors, to only buy from the marketing division or certified farmers. Reason being, there are some among us, sadly, who are reaping and selling produce, and they do not own a farm nor work on a farm. Go figure. Mr. Chairman, in 2020, we saw the construction of a storage facility at the Prospect Estate. Farmers are truly thankful for this facility. Storage of fresh fruits and vegetables are still a major concern of our farmers. We have adequate storage facility. If we have adequate storage facilities, we can store our produce when there's an abundance and then use it later when it's not so prevalent. A field of tomatoes, for example, you could only reap from that field for about a month. But a tomato can be stored up to 2 months. So you could have tomatoes from that same field for a 3-month period. Because if you pick on the last day of that month and you could store for 3 months, you could still have tomatoes for 3 months. So there's no need now for this glut and this spoilage and all of that. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm hopeful that in very short order, that facility could be used by our farmers. Pest control. Pests are an increasing problem in agriculture. Not only the 4-foot pests. We got monkeys, we got donkeys, and other wild animals, including rodents. And they're trying to take over our farms. Theft by humans is on the increase. However, I am aware that the Ministry of Agriculture has invested in some solar panel fencing to help mitigate the monkey problem. Something has got to be done about the theft that we are experiencing. The farmers at New River crying out. I lost about 3 bunches of banana last week. Something is going awry. Mr. Chairman, I must say, I'm very thankful for the subsidies that the NIA has given to farmers. And there's an old adage that says, give credit where credit is due. No import duties and VAT on equipment and inputs for farming. There's no duties and VAT on vehicles with their primary use for farming. No taxes levied on farming businesses. Reduced water rates. I believe that we could go lower on the water rate though. So on behalf of the farmers, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your assistance. Mr. Premier, the Permanent Secretary touched on the imports. Sufficing to say $20 million is really too much for us to be expending for food when we could produce, I would say, 50% of it here. I had the numbers for the importation for the 10 major crops in 2020. And I'm very delighted to see that there's a decrease in tomato, sweet potato, sweet peppers, and very happy that there was zero importation of pumpkin. Now, when we look at the graph, we know what is produced locally. For example, let me go back to tomatoes since I was on tomatoes. Tomatoes, we see that we imported about 16,000 pounds. When I started commercially in 2010, the importation of tomatoes was 96,000 pounds. So we've come leaps and bounds. And I feel reassured that if we are only importing 16,000 pounds, that by this year, 2021, once we put all the pieces to the puzzle, we could definitely put a zero to that as well. I'm looking forward to it. To our farmers, we need to adhere to the best farming practices so that we can produce more on less land in a sustainable way. Simple things like crop rotation, the proper use of pesticides and fungicides, proper waste management techniques, reduce overwatering, or leaching as it is sometimes referred to. Embrace technology where possible and keep adequate records. These are all steps that we can take to ensure food and nutrition security. In closing, I am hopeful that with these few words, as kind as I was, your thoughts have been provoked enough to allow us to continue the conversation. Such conversations should include all sectors and key stakeholders involved in agriculture. By continuing the conversation, we can improve on things that are working, correct the ills, introduce new and innovative ideas which would help to significantly reduce the importation of crops, fruits, and vegetables, and ultimately, reignite the passion and the trust to ensure food and nutrition security. Thank you, sir.
There's nothing that can be added, but just to say thank you. We have been inspired. I've certainly been inspired by the speakers here this morning. At this time, we'll take a short break, allow Premier to leave, and I suspect other ministers of cabinet to leave as well. Take a short break, make some changes to the setup, and we'll continue our conversation.
Thank you.
No problem. They personally, when they come to the government, they always speech. When they come, not open the way. When the whole food they come, they go on TV and make a speech. No, if you gotta go, okay. Yes, flight.
The pitch maker ready. Just continue with it. Yeah. Huh?
So, flight, you up there? You don't in the audience.
You're in charge. I'm going in the audience. Are you up here?
So, let me put this thing here, you in here already. You sure a little better? Oh, the slideshow thing?
Yeah. Are you next?
No, Randy.
Yeah,
Randy.
just left it up and just switch it
Okay.
on it depending.
From, what is it, from first slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
You talk first? You talk first? What's that? Left of the mic. What talk? You up? Randy? Fahidi. I got big eye on the food.
farmers throughout the sector with a proposed stimulus package of securing food for our people. Through the support of the NIA, allied agencies, the general public, and all others, affordable food and nutrition security, import substitution, livelihood improvement, and sustainability all increased during the year. Extension, small farms, forestry. During the year, we were able to make some observation, and there were 2 crops that actually stood out within the observations of the year. At the start of 2020, the department had set a target of a 6% increase in production. At the end of 2020, that increase surpassed the 6% target and grew at a 29%, where, when compared figures of 751,649 pounds in 2019, 2020 saw 964,015 pounds of food. To assist with this, there was a great increase in sweet potato production, a 515% increase in acreage, where in 2019, 1.94 acres was planted on Nevis, and in 2020, based on farms checked, 12 acres was planted. And if you drive around Nevis, and anyone from Nevis, every day you see someone harvesting potatoes. And I do believe that our farmers and our homeowners deserve a round of applause, please. During 2020, the department, as part of its stimulus package, distributed over 1 million seed and seedlings, which can equate to 12.5 acres planted. There was the establishment of an additional 5 acres of bananas planted on the island, and again, you drive Westbury, you see bananas. You drive Castle, you see bananas. You drive Gingerland, you see bananas. And an additional 2.5 acres of coconut were planted. Our 10,000 fruit tree mark was not achieved, but we were able to establish 6,000 plants, thus equating 60% of the target achieved. We continue the usage of technology, whether it's simple or high-tech as it relates to hydroponics, etc. The department, through its extension services, continued the training of farmers, where over 90 farmers were trained as it relates to crop agronomy and soil management. There was also the establishment of 5,000 square feet of greenhouse on the island. Improved efficiency of land preparation was also observed, and soil mapping was also conducted with the assistance of the Taiwanese mission. And if you look at the production data between 2019 and 2020, one would observe from the onset of the first quarter, the figures commenced to climb. Through the efforts of extension and the support of the quarantine division, there were significant decreases in food imports. Crops such as sweet potatoes, pumpkin, green bananas, cucumbers, and tomatoes. The small farm equipment pool throughout the year, including during the days of lockdown, continued land prep. In spite of the limited resources, no fully operating plow or better, and 1.5 tractor, the division was able to prepare 155.5 acres of land in 2020, compared to 165 acres in 2019. I do believe the division would have done well, and they deserve a round of applause, please. Of the total land prepared, 40% of this was done through our stimulus package. And over 16 acres of land was cleared with the assistance of the small farm and the public works department. Here is just a photo of one of the things that our farmers keep complaining about, is one of this of the bedder. And where a bedder normally operates on 4 days, our skillful team at the small farms have been doing bedding with just 2 days on the equipment. It continues with farmers training, as you see here, the use of low technology and technology as it relates to fertigation. Sweet potato fields established, greenhouse assistance in terms of part of our stimulus. Household farmers assistance as they receive seedlings, and farmers labor assistance also. Here on the far end, you see a picture with our colleagues from the Republic of China and Taiwan assisting our extension officers as it relates to land mapping here in the island of Nevis. And they would have also provided with monthly updates of pest control information in various pests that affect the sector. Plant quarantine. Plant quarantine continued surveillance and management of the mango seed weevil, the West Indies fruit fly, and the tomato leaf miner. Training in the management and prevention of alien invasive species was also conducted by this unit. Over 50 personnel were trained. These include farmers, extension officers, and customs officers. Training was also done as it relates to in banana production and black sigatoka surveillance through the plant quarantine with the assistance of our friends from IECA. Diagnosis of pest and disease an online platform was also established by the division, and for 2020 there was no introduction of new invasive species. So I do believe the division deserves a round of applause. Coupled with this, the division is now, one member of the division now sits on the pesticide board of St. Kitts Nevis Pesticide Board. And these are just some pictures again in terms of plant quarantine, training of customs officers, pest identification, banana management, and black sigatoka surveillance. Marketing. In 2020, this division remained open even during the period of lockdown. This was done to ensure agricultural supplies were readily available. A number of activities took place at this division during the year. Seed distribution of over 900 households. Seeds for farmers, over 55 farmers benefited. Supply of agricultural products and food sales. All of these were done while the division continued normal operations. During the first quarter of 2020, throughput through the division reduced by 25%. This was due to various farmers' markets held on the onset of the COVID lockdowns and reduce of sales through the division. Farmers were able to retail their own foods. Although this was so, it was observed that savings from our farmers were not reaching to our consumers. And as to such, the division commenced what they call their weekly sales, where they're able to provide fresh local produce to the consumers at farm price. At the end of the year, there was a 2% increase of throughput at the division. There were no recorded spoilage at the division during 2020, and I think that the division did extremely well. Farmers' payout in 2020 reduced during the first 2 quarters. In 2019, a total of $65,871.01 were paid out to farmers when compared to, that's the figure for 2020 when compared to $118,607 paid out to farmers, a reduction of 43%. The annual payouts also reduced during the year. This reduction was only linked to the reduced throughput, but farmers were willing to ensure the public was afforded local food. So, not because you see a reduction in farmers' payout. What happened is that farmers agreed to pass on the dollar value from the stimulus to the consumers. So, if the marketing division would have paid normal prices, then you would have seen the prices increase. But because farmers agreed to pass the dollar value on, then hence you see the reduction as it relates to the payouts. Agro-processing. The division experienced a number of challenges, of which many can be linked to the COVID pandemic, which reduced output. The temporary closure of the processing division in mid-March and the reduction of sales via various outlets. As again, during the pandemic, quite a bit of the outlets, small outlets, they were also locked down during COVID, hence why the reduction of avenues for sales at the processing plant. In 2019, when compared to 2020, there was a 30% decrease in composite bread. Drinks produced at the processing plant also decreased by 3%. Pulp, fortunately, increased by 131%. And again, what we saw is two things we saw. We saw a number of entrepreneurs starting to do community businesses. And so these were used as some of the avenues, and also the schools, when school reopened, quite a number of schools started to purchase the pulp also to ensure that our children are able to eat healthy. Lollies also increased by 68%. A number of the sales at the processing plant are conducted via the schools and walk-in sales. Despite the challenges at the division continued to support farmers and home gardeners to ensure livelihoods are improved. This was done through consistent acquirement of raw materials from farmers and homeowners. If you were to look at 2019, before the pandemic, the processing plant only paid out $15,156.85. And during 2020, that figure would have doubled or increased by 101%. And it's basically mean quite a bit of persons are doing a bit at home. And this shows the level of commitment and the level of seriousness that the department have as it relates to improving the livelihoods of our farmers here on the island of Nevis. Continued, as you see there, our composite bread and our lollies, and they range in a number of flavors. And again, these are supplied to the schools weekly and a number of walk-ins. The veterinary livestock division. The division within the year continued its efforts of ensuring animal health and productivity. This was achieved through genetic improvement in cattle, farmers training, over 35 farmers were trained in 2020, forage bank development with 3 acres established, and improved working relationship with farmers group, such as the Cherry Garden Farmers Group, and the provision of supplies. Luckily, during the pandemic, we were able to plan a little ahead, and so supplies were available throughout the year during the pandemic, and our increase and ramped up surveillance. The sector is still faced with many challenges, such as dogs, irregular supplies of products. Sometimes you call the supplier that oversees the out of stock or something like that. Unfettered animals, where officers may go to farms and the animals are not on the farm, they're somewhere on the street roaming or liming. And land and capital. Dog bite continue to be reported to the division, and majority of the cases that was reported in 2020 were small ruminants. And when we look at the cases, when comparing 2019 with 2020, we actually saw a 5% increase in dog bites as it relates to small ruminants here in the island of Nevis. And again, this continue to hinder the industry. We continue to ask our farmers to tether the animals appropriately, and we continue to ask our dog owners to ensure that their dogs are well secured. Derma cases reported in 2019 and 2020 also show a 10% increase. Luckily, there were no reported deaths as a relation to derma. So here, what you see here is our improved cattle breed. Some farmers of the farmers group there in Cherry Garden visiting each other. And here you see some forage being fed to some goats from one the forage bank, and an officer conducting farmers training as it relates to silage. Improved genetics continue to be very important for us at the department, and we continue to supply our farmers with this stock, the genetic improvement stock that we have in Maddens, and you can see the picture of the cattle there. We also are now looking at pigs. We would have acquired a number of pigs to improve the pig genetics, mainly large white and the Duroc, and through the efforts of Ross University, we were able to secure 3 Boer goats to improve the small ruminant genetics on the island. The department continued to be proud of its poultry producers, and in 2020 we saw a 12% increase in egg production here on the island of Nevis. And when we look at 2019, there was a total of 259 and 181 dozen egg produced, compared to 2020, 289, 991 dozen produced here on the island of Nevis. And this production is among 13 farmers here on the island of Nevis. And as to such, the island of Nevis only import eggs during the Christmas period. And I do believe that our poultry farmers are doing tremendous. Abattoir division. During 2020, the operation at this division was significantly affected, where 3,546 animals were slaughtered. Majority of these animals were sheep, pigs, and goats. The reduction in slaughter was mainly due to the cancellation of the annual open day, the cancellation of the annual sports event, and our summer activity, Culturama. Added to this, slaughtering operations at the division ceased during the lockdown, where only sales were conducted during that time. The division participated in our activity of the farmers market and a taste of Nevis, which are just a few areas in which the division conducted outside sales. This also affected the total slaughter, which was reduced by 18% in 2020 when compared to 2019. Concession was granted to 345 farmers, 345 animals as it relates to a part of the stimulus. The total meat production at the abattoir significantly reduced in 2020, which can be observed within the first 2 quarters. In 2020, there was a 28% decrease in the first quarter and a 46% decrease in the second quarter. Overall, there was a 22% decrease in slaughtering at the abattoir. Once normalcy resumed, the sum of animal slaughter began to normalize, and as you could look at the graph in Q3 and Q4, you realize you're seeing 2019 and 2020 started to level off somewhat. Despite the difficulties, the division increased in value added, and there was an increase of 9.47% at the abattoir. And these increases were basically due to smoked beef, smoked chicken, smoked ham, chicken burgers, and ground beef. And again, a number of these were channeled through individual households and new entrepreneurs that would have popped up within communities. The abattoir was also able to meet its mandate set in 2020 of developing 2 new products. In 2020, they actually did 3. And I do believe that the guys at the abattoir have been doing tremendous despite the challenges, and they deserve a round of applause, please. Chicken salami, pork salami, and seasoned mutton roast were the 3 products added at the abattoir. To date, the total number of products at the abattoir stands at 25. And every year, you're seeing the numbers grow. And again, this is not just because the abattoir wish to add new products, but because there's a demand out there for the products. It's because the abattoir continuously to find creative ways of ensuring that farmers are able to sell their meat. Farmers, animals are able to find some plate in someone's house, and farmers' livelihoods are able to improve. Payments to farmers in 2020 decreased by 14%, and we could see why. Again, there was a total of $450,774.18 paid out to farmers in 2020. Our ally agencies. We continue to work with our ally agencies closely. ICA, we would have partnered with ICA with a protected grow box initiative where 20 grow boxes were constructed and distributed to 20 homes here on the island of Nevis. We are looking at a dollar value with ICA and the Department of Agriculture. Some little over $30,000 was contributed. And when you go around and you see these people grow boxes, they're very proud. They range from single mothers, school children, seniors, and they're very proud to have a range of products persons keep calling asking if they could actually get a grow box also. We continue to partner with ICA in terms of projects. Right now we're looking at one in the New River area and around Nevis as it relates to water and training of our staff. We continue to work with Ross University as it relates to small ruminants and large ruminant development and training of staff and farmers in terms of pregnancy diagnostics. The ROC, we continue to work closely with them in terms of variety trials, weather planning. They assist us tremendously with seeds during the COVID pandemic, pests and disease control, and management and information sharing. I think Mr. Truss spoke of that before, so it's something that we're working closely with the mission also. And land mapping in terms of knowing exactly where our lands are. And not just knowing where our lands are, but we also taking photos of the lands in terms of what they look like now, what they look like next year or 10 years down the road to see are our lands being degraded, how our farmers are managing the lands. And even in the event of disasters, at least we could see what was, what is, and how can we assist our farmers. And we continue to work with the FAO as it relates to Farmers Group and the ECGC in St. Vincent with the feed distribution. Some over $30,000 of feed was distributed. Major activities in 2020, again, there were no open day in 2020. We had a sequence of farmers market and the weekly market sales. We commenced the construction of the 6 chill compartment cold storage. We were faced with some delays during the COVID, and again, hence why we were delayed about 5 months. And the facility is close completion with a storage capacity of 3,571.95 cubic feet of cold storage space. We also assist the New River farmers in terms of the construction of a 20,000-gallon water tank there in New River, water which is well needed within that area, and the repair of the chill in New River. We rolled out our COVID stimulus packages to our farmers, and the Premier would have highlighted in terms of what we would have given out already. As it relates to from the department alone, and this doesn't incur the cross ministries such as water, the ministry support, but from the department alone, some well over $500,000 value was used to support our farmers. We had our Taste of Nevis in October. We reintroduced the Agriculture Advisory Committee. We would have had quite a bit of meetings before as we look to see how can the ministry as technicians, how can the farmers, the allied agencies, how can we, as the feature speaker said, be in different churches and singing from the same songbook or hymn sheet? Hymn sheet, right? We started discussions with some agencies as it relates to funding for our farmers. That has been a cry for our farmers. Farmers continue to have that yearning to want to invest. And when you go to commercial banks, the interest rate, it's basically crazy. So we would have started some discussion with lending institutes as it relates to that. When we look at the COVID and even the theme for this event, the reignition started, well, we could say the reignition started in 2020 from the force of COVID, and there was an additional 15 acres of land placed under production. Most of these are private lands, backyards, and so forth. So it clearly states that persons are looking at the sector to improve their livelihoods, and we have to support them. one of the things that is not listed here is that we continue to see a trend as it relates to non-traditional individuals getting into the sector. And if you look at our featured speaker, for example, and every time I travel over abroad, I speak of him in terms of an IT technician, started with a tray of seedlings, which he complained that it was too much for this student SBA, now one of the leading greenhouse farmers here in the island of Nevis. And in just 10 years, 10, 11 years, it's amazing to see the growth that Mr. Truss have been able to make in just 10 years. And as a young individual, can I say that, Mr. Truss? Okay. As a young individual, I could say that we're very proud to see the progress that he have been making. And even from since he stepped out in terms of the sector, in terms of the level of investment, you've seen a number of youths also stepping out also. You see persons with architectures now getting into hydroponics. You're seeing businessmen, probably never work for in their life, investing heavily into the sector. And it clearly states that if the business community is looking at the sector, we who inside should be looking in the right direction. Because businessmen don't look in the opposite direction, they look in the direction of business. And I must say that we are pleased and proud of them. We continue to see a decrease in the average age of our farmers also here in the island of Nevis. We started work with our colleagues in Sinkits in terms of training for the agricultural census, which was due in 2020, but because of population census, it was pushed forward. And we commenced groundwork as it relates to the broiler industry here in Sinkits and Nevis. We would have done market surveys, import surveys, and we realized that we're looking at big bucks within that industry. Here is just a quick pic of the chill facility. What you see on the far is when we first started, and what you see here now and closer to me is where we're at now. All the chills are in. The electrical work is currently being done in terms of connecting the building to the main power supply. And we are hoping to have this facility commence quite shortly. As I said, and as the speaker before me said, quite a number of persons have food, and we can't allow those food to spoil. We have to ensure that our people eat. In conclusion, in 2020, the Department of Agriculture and the sector was tested to its level of preparedness in the face of a disaster/pandemic. Never before has our actions and decisions meant such on this island. By working closely with our ally agencies, farmers, home gardeners, communities, we were able to stand. Team effort through our farmers, both crop and livestock, nutritious food was able and available to all. Our need for a healthier Nevis has seen a significant transformation in the sector with sweet potatoes, bananas, and the purchase of local commodities. Supportive of the sector, the stimulus or subsidies demonstrates our commitment to our farmers, and again mounting to over $500,000 in value. And these range again in seeds, backhoe services, labor, technical support, etc. Although the revenues throughout the department captured decrease, it does not necessarily mean revenue in farmers' pocket decrease. Farmers were able to conduct individual sales where, although the product may not have passed through our system, they were able to do individual sales. As the department continues continue its efforts of ensuring a better and healthier Nevis for 2021, it must be noted that the commitment can and only be successful with the full support of staff, farmers, investors, supermarkets, restaurants, hotels, and most of all, the general public to support our Eat Local, Buy Local campaign. Through this, food and nutrition security, import substitution, livelihood improvement, and sustainability will be achieved. I have a quote here, and I choose one of his quotes because it's the COVID and the name is keep playing. So I choose the quote from Bill Gates. Innovations that are guided by smallholder farms, adapted to local circumstances and suitable for the economy and environment will be necessary to ensure food security in the future. Thank you. Good.
A pleasant good morning, still morning, right, to all. And let me adopt the protocol that was set by the chairperson who would have spoke before me. Okay, indeed, it's a pleasure for me to present to you the road ahead with my colleague and Chief Extension Officer, Mr. Steve Reed. It is indication of the fact that for 2021, we are working as a team. If you would have realized last year, Mr. Elliott would have given the whole aspect of agriculture. But this year, we are sharing the load, as you would say. So this presentation would be in two parts. I would be presenting the first part, which would deal with the abattoir, agro-processing, clerical division, communication unit, forestry division, veterinary and livestock division, and administration. Mr. Steve Reed, our Chief Extension Officer, would deal with extension, marketing, propagation unit, quarantine division, and small farm equipment and pool. The abattoir division. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on the abattoir division. Reason being, I normally get carried away with the products that they offer. So the abattoir will continue in 2021 to provide quality slaughtering and processing services for our farmers and the general public. They would also continue to provide a wide variety of choice cuts. And provide training also in meat processing for the general public and any groups upon request. They would continue to provide the high quality value-added products as they normally do. And I am getting carried away because I had some of their products in December, which was the ham, and I like talking about that ham. And I must commend the abattoir manager and the staff at the abattoir. And we'll see small, not too big upgrade in terms of the slaughtering area at the abattoir for 2021. So the work continue. It's a continuous process, and we want to give the abattoir division a sounding round of applause now for the work and the continued work they'll be doing for 2021. Agro-processing division, you'd have training in agro-processing, both staff and for the general public. Processing of certain raw materials at the agro-processing would only be done up to the first stage of the process. Things like cassava, soursop, golden apple, mango, which would be pulp, to allow the agro-processing plant to better support agro-processors on the island of Nevis. So some of these pulp would be sold to agro-processors who in turn would continue to process these material into value-added products. They continue to provide the composite bread, as the general public would have gravitated towards those bread, from the meringue bread, you have the pumpkin, and all sorts of ingredients added to make a wholesome bread for our people here on the island of Nevis, and of course on the island of St. Kitts. Pursuance of market would be done for processed products. They'll be looking into having some of these products as gift items in hotels, provide restaurants with some of these products, gift shops, and agro-processors, amongst other businesses. They will seek to develop new products of economic importance for 2021. Clerical division, which is a critical division within our sector, would continue to ensure the timely collection of government monies, land rent, so per se, backer services income, tractor operations, and so on. They would also ensure that all government equipment are properly logged and accounted for. And if we have to spend monies on procuring equipment, we have to ensure that those equipment last. And for 2021, we'll be doing that. They'll also ensure that monies are spent appropriately. And although the director would have control, per se, in terms of what we should spend on and so on, I know the lady, the Mrs. Doe at the clerical section, is always observant and ensuring that the monies are spent wisely and appropriately. So overall, we'll improve accountability. Communication unit within the Ministry and Department of Agriculture would continue to act as a linkage between farmers and the general public. They'll continue the On the Farm program, which is a 15-minute show that features activities of the Department of Agriculture, both livestock and in the crop sector. Fast Fact, that would be a new 15 to 10-minute program, show, which would highlight special problems facing farmers and how they can quickly remedy these problems. The pharmacy is also a new show, being done in collaboration with the Health Department Promotion Unit, with the aim of promoting the use of local fruits and vegetables, as well as there'll be a preparation option by a chef to give some appeal to some of those fruits and vegetables that persons don't want to eat. So after you would have seen how the chef prepared these stuff. You'd be inclined to try them out at home. I know Mr. Merchant, you'll be inclined to try those also. So the show will be aired on Nevis Television, and it will also be available on the YouTube channel, on the Facebook pages for viewing on demand. We also would continue to use the talk show hosted by Mr. Ronald King, Everything Agriculture. It's a wonderful show, and I want you to put your hand together for Mr. King, who would have started this program and would have gotten the word out about agriculture all around the world. Thank you, Mr. King. Our forestry division for 2021 would continue the 10,000 tree planting initiative. As the director would have mentioned, last year we had COVID and we were stalled per se. But the work is still to be done, and I want to say that we have gotten through a fair amount of planting, and we'll continue to do so for 2021. We'll establish 5 acres of fruit trees, including citrus, coconut, sugar apple, soursop, avocado. And sugar apple and soursop and avocado, we find that a lot of people are not planting those, and we want to encourage. And this 5-acre block not would be per se for government, but we are encouraging private landowners, private farmers to get involved in planting these trees. You see, our thrust is to uplift farmers. And as you can see from the director's speech and going through the abattoir, forestry, agro-processing, it's all about providing that avenue for our farmers to make some money. So farmers, we are with you for 2021, and we'll be mending fences, creating bridges, and creating a oneness among the department and our farmers for 2021. We'll also see the establishment of a 2-acre plot of passion fruit, and it could be more. Some work already is being done in this regard, where we have a private farmer getting into the passion fruit production. Planting of trees along our coastline is essential to prevent the massive erosion that is taking place. And if you travel to in the New River, the Coconut Walk area, you could attest to the level of erosion that is being taken place in that area. So we'll be doing some work and probably starting in that area as it is easily accessible, and some work is being done there already. So we'll continue to work along with our farmers on irrigation projects across the island. We want to ensure that farmers are well equipped, whether it be water, monkey protection fences, fencing wire. We will be here to deliver those to you at a cost, of course, at a reasonable cost to you, our farmers. We'll continue to work in the area of monkey and donkey control. That has been a problem over the years, with monkeys invading farms and reaping havoc on our farmers. Donkeys creating accidents on the roadway. So we are with you, with the car owners, farmers. We are with you on making it safer for you to produce or to traverse our roads. The Veterinary and Livestock Division will see continued work in forage bank development, which is important for our livestock farmers, whether you are in Bricklin, Gingerland, Cotton Ground, wherever you are, the personnel at the veterinary section, livestock section, would reach out to you and guide you in terms of forage bank development or establishment. There will be an increase from that division in the livestock extension, and it is important to reach our farmers, our livestock farmers, and to give them guidance in terms of the animal husbandry, the do's and don'ts, and in terms of discussing ways to improve their stock. There will also be farmers training in, I would have mentioned, animal husbandry. Possible work in the artificial insemination, and I say possible because there has to be some discussions, and Dr. Ambrose James would lead that charge, and he would guide us accordingly. Development of the broiler industry, you would have heard from our director that some work has been done in that area and will continue this year to push hard ahead so this could come to reality. The establishment of a poultry production association, and we felt that it was important, and it is important, I must say, to establish such an association. It would not only look at lobbying for better feed prices, but could gain stuff in bulk for their farms. As an association, you have certain lobbying power, even lobbying with government in terms of land space, materials for your pens, and so on. Continue work in breed development, as the director would have mentioned, in the cattle, the goat, and the pigs. There was some work done in 2020. We'll continue to have top breeds for our livestock farmers on the island of Nevis. We want to be second to none, so we'll continue our thrust in breed development and the genetics of the animal, to get in good genetics, to have an animal reach a certain poundage in shorter period of time. Administration, the director's office. It is new, but the director office, along with the ministry, has been working and lobbying for farmers. They would be lobbying for internet service from those providers to have internet service in farming areas so as to enable farmers to set up security defenses, security cameras to combat the much prevalent predial larceny. And that is something the director would have mentioned. He'll be working hard and fast on, because over the period November-December, we would have realized that there has been widespread theft, from electric fence unit to crops, persons going and selling, reaping where they didn't sow. And that, in my mind, should not have been. He also mentioned, and some work has started in terms of approaching institutions and lobbying for better interests, all for who? Farmers. So you see, we have been working and would be working even harder in 2021 to empower our farmers and having them getting the best of the crop. Discussion with allied agencies to see how best they could assist farmers in terms of grant training or building capacity in some way or another. We'll seek to establish and encourage the establishment of 2 farmers' cooperative for 2021, and it could be more. The more, the better. And to continue to strengthen a vibrant farmers cooperative in the New River area. Discussion will also be made with private landowners with large tracts of land. Encourage them to either rent or lease to persons interested in getting into farming. This would be done because they are large tracts of land, and I admire the lands in the Vervine area going across by the late, great Wendell Huggins. Those are good lands, loamy soil, that my grandmother would have toiled over the years. So I know carrots, cabbage, sweet potato, and those lands are basically overrun by large trees and so on. Those are good lands to engage persons to lease or rent to, or farmers to enhance their production and to have a period where you could rest other areas which might have been overworked. So those lands, I would say, turn back virgin lands. And so the director's office would be lobbying with persons and finding out who own these lands and so on, so they could get some more land for farming and to contribute to our food security, both here on the island of Nevis and in St. Kitts. Thank you. I want to ask my colleague now, Mr. Steve Reed, to continue on the road ahead.
Good morning again. Chair, permit me to adjust my mic. Yes. Morning. Trying to bring some life here. You with me still, right? All right. It is my job here this morning to present to you an outlook from a few of the divisions in the department for 2020. And I'm going to start here with extension. And in extension, we are hoping for this year to have an improvement in the extension service in terms of farm visits and contact with farmers. And this, I could assure the farmers, that is not all talk but more action, because we have already acquired a vehicle to assist our farmers in getting out there, because that was one of the many constraints, and we have eliminated to some level that constraint. We are also seeking training for officers and farmers in record keeping, plant propagation, greenhouse management, and crop forecasting. And given the present situation that we are in with the COVID and all that, most of these trainings will also be available online via YouTube and other medias. We would also be taping quite a few of them and running it on various programs which the Assistant Director had mentioned before, whether it's iron agriculture and other programs such as that. We are hoping to also use of technology to map and record data. In short, we call it Agri-IS. That's the introduction of the Agriculture Information System. This system is basically to provide the decision makers with real-time information. For example, a situation may arise and the PS and the minister may want data in order to make a decision to benefit the farmers now. And we realize that having accurate data at your fingertips is best to make more informed decision in order to better the agricultural sector. We also aim for this period to have an increase in sweet potato, yam, and tanya production, mostly what we call the root crops. And there are a few advantages to this. One, as we may have heard the Premier mention before, of food security. These crops have a very long shelf life in relative to the tomatoes and sweet peppers. They can tolerate both extremes, whether rainy conditions and drought to an extent. And so it's also a substitute for rice. In case the boats stop coming in, we can actually sustain ourselves. So the sweet potato, yam, and tanya. Of course, we still will have the carrots and so forth, but these would be the main focus for this year. We also will increase in greenhouse by an addition of 30,000 square feet. I think that's about 6 new greenhouses that was mentioned before, whether by our guest speaker, presenter, mentioned that the ministry have seen it fit to go into the direction of greenhouses, knowing that it is more secure from all levels of pests, whether 4-foot insect or 2-foot pests. So this is the way to go, where they are protected from the elements along from predial larceny. And we continue to increase in banana and plantain production. Of course, yes, everybody wants to plant, but when we plant in bananas, this would be closely monitored by extension, because bananas tree are easy to grow, but if they're not located in the right areas and so forth, overnight the winds can topple everything, especially when they're fruiting. So here's where the technical advice comes in with the extension division. As we move on to marketing division, the marketing division hopes in this present year to continue to source of affordable agricultural inputs for the farmers, whether it is seeds, drip line, irrigation, solar system, or anything of agricultural or on-the-farm use. The list is too long for me to say here, because there is a policy from the department. Whatever it needs, whatever the farmers need to ensure their success, I think the department will be willing to accommodate. So it doesn't make sense here I list hoe and fox when, as Mr. Truss would say, we're going in technology and may want a monitor to monitor the moisture content or the acid content of water and so forth. So there's a whole range of stuff. And the good thing about going through the marketing division is that they already have the relationship, so these stuff would be subsidized by the government via the import taxes. We'll continue to supply a wide range of environmentally friendly chemicals, allowing for more options for farmers to fight the pests, especially for organic farmers. Our number one line of chemicals, Marketing International, is more environmentally friendly. Most, if not all, of these, I use the term repellent rather than pesticides, you can use today and harvest the same day, but we normally tell people a day after, so that farmers feel comfortable producing it for us. Farmers, are comfortable when they eat their own food and they give it to their children. So we want to build this system where, rather than bringing in these harsh chemicals, much more friendly, environmentally friendly, and safer for the body would be pushed upon the farmers to use. We continue to organize farmers market in order to assist farmers' sales of their produce. We started this some time back, especially during the COVID session, and we realized that a lot of the patrons would come and are very grateful because they don't have to pay that middleman that markup in between. So it's from farm to the fork. And people get to meet their farmers and have these relations. So farmers could tell them their technology that they use to produce them, so that they have more confidence in eating local because they know the method which this food has been produced. We are also hoping to improve the improvement of marketing operations. We are providing 6 new cold storage facility to store the perishable agricultural products. Now, in simple terms, how these 6 chilling units would assist farmers is to prolong the life of a crop. In other words, we know here in Nevis our lands are limited. And using the example of a tomato, when you harvest a crop, and that can go into storage and it comes out at increments, small increments, by the time another farmer, or maybe that same farmer could come with another crop. So there is continuity. So there is no longer, hopefully, that gap between crops, so that we now becomes more self-sufficient, knowing that we have food in storage, we have food out there in the field, so there will be a continuous flow. So the excuse that some retailers may have that we are not consistent, I'm hoping that for 2021 that would be eliminated. We are also going to pursue overseas markets. And I'm not saying hope. The ministry has assured me that everything has already been done. The hold up right now is because of the COVID. The vessels can't go because when they come back they'll have to quarantine for 14 days, and that's a bit difficult at the time being. But rest assured, once these guidelines have been re-evaluated, there is market out there for our produce, and it's just for us to produce it and send it out. As we move on, marketing division, we are hoping to establish a delivery service using a data platform, and we are hoping to start with that in the town area, in the city, where all these institutions such as the bank and other cooperatives around the town area could forward their orders and it would be delivered to them. Based on how this is done, then it will grow according to expand from the town area. Because with developing this system, we realize most people works in the town. So if you can target that market in town, they get the food in town and then they carry it out. You don't have to be running all over the place. The relocation of the marketing unit, which is one of the success stories for the department in its new and improved facility at Prospect, that is more than self-explanatory, where the marketing unit will now have access to storage space, grading facility. So no longer the tradition of having a bag of potato and a farmer putting the good ones on top and the bad ones underneath and escape with that. Now we'll have the facility, we'll be able to grade. So when we're shipping out a bag, we know that everything in that bag has been looked at and has passed. And so would reduce complaints by the purchasers of spoiled goods being in that package. And we are hoping to reinvigorate the life in the public market by hosting monthly activities. We know, well, in some of us older folks' days, that the public market was a place of life. And we are hoping to get back to that point where people look forward to going to the market, even if it's just on market day on a Saturday. The propagation unit, the main focus for this year would be on citrus. There will be extensive work on citrus. We have already acquired limes, grapefruit, orange, and tangerine trees to be multiplied and make available for sale. We know most of the people have already established some sort of mango tree. Everybody wanted an emery poly, and people keep asking, well, we always importing all this citrus. Why not push the citrus? So we needed to get some varieties that were tolerant to our conditions and produce and would yield well and resistant to some of these pests that's around. And we have acquired them. We are presently in the stage of multiplying, and hopefully we shall see the rollout to the gardeners, whether large scale or backyard gardeners, to establish the plants. Renovation and expanding of the nursery for seedling production. We have to build a few more nursery stalls, so that we can hold more seedlings. When you drive around society, you notice that during the COVID period, everyone turned a farmer, and the demand for seedlings went up drastically. So we now have to expand to accommodate our clientele, and this is one of the ways. We don't want people to say the lands are ready, but no seedlings are there. We want to make sure have seedlings available to the general public. And of course, when we do that expansion, we have to put a sprinkler system in place so that we have time. The workers will be able to cover more than they are watering with hose and so forth. In terms of quarantine division, the quarantine division will continue the surveillance for tomato leaf miner, mango seed weevil, and fruit fly. They also will continue the monitoring of invasive species, whether by ear or at the seaports, and our normal weekly checks of container checks. They're also going to liaise with the extension division in order to improve pest management across the island, because they have the expertise in pests and pest management. So a lot of time you're going to see the extension officer along with the quarantine officer doing farm visits. They're going to continue to work in collaboration with the extension division in the monitoring of fruits and vegetable imports versus local production, in order to give priority to farmers' produce where necessary. As you know, quarantine is the one that collects all data of what is imported into the island. So by having that data along in the hands of extension, we'll be better informed as to what to tell our farmers, where the shortfall is, where the market opportunity is, etc. The quarantine division is also hoping to provide training for importers, farmers, and extension officers in the area of import protocol, invasive species, and restriction measures. We continue to cooperate with importers, both fresh produce and aggregates. When we say aggregates, people normally think that most of the pest and disease that comes into the Federation may come within plants or fruits, but a lot of time these pests take a hitchhike or ride, whether it's in stones or sands or some other material that is imported. So we're going to work in collaboration, extension, and quarantine in that monitoring process. And to small farms, equipment and pool, improvement in land preparation and operation. This comes with more in-house training. We're going to have some small workshops with our operators to see how we could improve the land preparation that we offer to our clientele. More timely operation by the same division. We don't want people to set seedlings and the seedlings are ready and their land not prepared so that they could plant. So that is one thing that we're going to step up on. We're also going to, the procurement of equipment, new implements such as plow, bedder, rotavator, boom sprayer, root crop harvester, etc. I would stress a bit on the root crop harvester, seeing that we are doing much more root crops for this year, especially the sweet potato, that cannot be harvested manually given our soil type here on the island of Nevis. And this root crop harvester is not just for sweet potato, but can be adapted to a range of root crops, including carrots and so forth. We are also hoping to have parts, to stock up on parts at the unit to reduce downtime. A lot of time a part may go bad or broken in the field, and we have to wait for it to come from overseas or pay huge amounts to get it quick back here. So we're going to see how much we could store here on island. I know sometimes, finance is a problem, but we're going to see how much we could stock here on island. So if the event comes that we have a breakdown of something that normally doesn't break, we just go into our storage and we could be back out there to be preparing lands. And to aid in this, of course, we have land inspection prior to preparation, where we will go on site, check the land, walk through the grass, the bushes, make sure no stones are there that would damage our equipment. And this, of course, would reduce our downtime due to damaged equipment. And at this point in time, I would like to thank you on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Libert, and myself for lending me your ears and turning you back over to the chair.
I'm trusting everybody's still awake and with us, right? Hello? Can I do a sound check? I'm making sure Mr. Lou in the back, you're with us? Mr. James? Mr. Marchant? Okay. At this time, we're going nicely. We are on target. At this time, I'm going to invite our allied agencies, members of our allied agencies, to bring us some greetings. We have Mrs. Jones from AICA. I see Mr. Fleming from CARI. I also invite, firstly, Bishop Ron Collins to bring some greetings from the Ministry of Agriculture on St. Kitts, and then we'll have the greetings from our allied agencies.
Good morning. Allow me to recognize the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources for the federal government, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, also as the Deputy Premier and the Minister responsible for agriculture here in the Nevis Island Administration. My colleague Pierce Huey Sargent, Minister Evelyn, and of course our featured speaker, Mr. Ross, and all other and all other heads of department, permanent secretaries. I must recognize the delegation of 11 or 12 who came with me from St. Kitts. This is testimony and evidence of the very strong working relationship that we have. And I will speak to that as we carry on with this morning. I just want to bring some brief remarks and look particularly at the theme for Agenda 2021, reigniting the passion and the trust as we ensure food and nutrition security. Today's theme, I believe, is instructive. It speaks to the renewed, intended, sustained thrust for the further enhancement of the agricultural sector in Nevis. I believe it speaks to the energy that we're seeing, the vision for the sector, and the sheer will to overcome all obstacles that we will obviously face. Most certainly, it calls for an increased commitment and for us to intensify our efforts to food security and nutritional security. Your passion that is being displayed through the many comments and remarks today from the Premier, our Minister, our Director, our Deputy Director, our Permanent Secretary and all others who would have presented, we can see the passion, and we believe this passion is needed to propel you to strive for something greater in the sector. Passion will help us to move beyond challenges, beyond obstacles, and for us to realize our vision. And this passion stems from a deep pride in your work, which is obvious, and the common purpose that all those in agriculture share, to provide our own people with quality and safe food. Our journey together, our joint efforts here in Nevis and also in St. Kitts at the federal level, our shared goals all aim to help us think through the process of enhancing our sector, and it includes strengthening actions in the agricultural sector. I must underscore, however, the need for a tailor-made approach to the sector at every level, and the enhancement that is suited to our country's unique set of circumstances here in our federation and at the Nevis Island Assembly here locally. While we identify a broad range of actions that must be done this year in the agricultural sector, it is our responsibility as leaders in the sector to provide the right enabling environment for these things to happen. And this is very supportive to what Mr. Truss shared with us. The agricultural development depends to a great extent on how successful knowledge sharing, when knowledge is generated and it is applied. Passions Ignite will result in investment in knowledge, especially in the form of science and technology, to promote sustainable and equitable agricultural development at the national and local level. When passions ignite, it must spread, and it must be allowed to spread. We must not keep our passions to ourselves. So that fire, that passion must be contagious. Somebody else must catch it. We are not catching COVID, so we must catch good things. We must catch the passion, and we must remove the mass, figuratively, from our sector as leaders to ensure that the next person catches the passion. Our desirable outcomes are simply sustainable, increased yields, improved plant and animal health, and improved product quality, and of course, to reduce our import bill in support of the vision that our minister continues to share. Agriculture has the potential here in our federation to become a vital contributory growth sector capable of reducing poverty and stimulating economic growth. Our plans must look to the future and seek to enhance the agricultural opportunities for our youths also and for our women. I must commend the staff of the Ministry of Agriculture and the department. I must give acknowledgement to the strength and the leadership that is provided by our Honorable Minister that has ignited the passion not only here at the local level, but most certainly at the federal level as well. Both ministries, I can assure you, are working closely together to ensure we meet targets and demands in this sector, to enhance the sector, and to put policies that become the vehicle to drive the growth needed in the sector. We will be working jointly on the agricultural census, on the new strategy plan, and current areas of collaboration also include, as was stated by Mrs. Truss, Shade House Technology, Agricultural Education Initiative, boiler production, that is the most exciting thing that is coming our way, pest control and production targets. Currently, our permanent secretaries are working very close together. We meet on a regular basis, and this is a sustained effort to ensure that we can support the new thrust that we are seeing in the sector in support of the minister's vision and the guidance that has been provided. Our annual review meeting, which will be held next week, Thursday, has also tagged onto it Agenda 2021. And at this meeting on the theme, similar to what we've seen here, the theme says, together we invest, we transform, build partnerships for sustainable agriculture and food security. I want to commend the efforts of the department again, to commend all the stakeholders, to commend the farmers. I want to thank the featured speaker for his presentation, because this is the direction in which we will need to go. We must address those real challenges. We must use the technology that exists so that we can do more and gain more from the sector. Thank you very much, and may we continue to have a fruitful exercise today.
Thank you, PS. I invite this time, ladies first, Ms. Jones from AICA to bring some remarks.
Good morning, everybody. I wasn't as delicate as you, sorry. Right. Yes, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Adopting protocols as set by the chairperson. Just special greetings to the Minister Jeffers and Evelyn, and of course to the farmer Truss, who did a wonderful presentation. I'd like to bring greetings from the Director General, Manuel Ortego, and from the ECS representative, Greg Rollins. During this presentation, and of course, farmers, colleagues, good morning. Well, as it was said, 2020 was really an exceptional year. It was a year I came into St. Kitts and Nevis. I came in March last year, and 1 week later, we were in lockdown. So it was amazing. But however, during that period, being under lockdown, what it did bring, I think it was just about the 2 weekends after that, the Director of Agriculture in St. Kitts called up, and we started meeting and started visiting farms, trying to get things together. And that was a very good reconnaissance time for me to see what was happening in St. Kitts, speaking to the director in Nevis to see what was happening in Nevis. So it was very good for me to get a good understanding of what was going on. So just to go through what was already presented in terms of what was ICA's achievements last year. We did a lot of virtual training, we did a lot of virtual meetings, well, a lot of virtual surveys and connections with stakeholders. We had the training with the tutor absoluta, the tomato leaf miner, which also did training and also equipment to St. Kitts and to Nevis, and that was done by the University of Florida. There was a very good meetings with locust management, and these were worldwide meetings where there was sharing of information from Africa, Asia, South America, and those were really very productive meetings. We also had face-to-face meetings with the backyard farmers, and that was in conjunction with the Gender Affairs and Community Development, where 20 household backyard farms were established, and this was illustrated by the Director of Agriculture. Black sigatoka was of importance. We did survey through the island to see if it was established in Nevis, and yes, it was. So we did see many examples within the farms. So the extension officers got a very good view of how the disease presented itself in different banana species, looking at banana in the lacatan, the silk, the plantain. What was very exciting for last year too was when COVID did happen and farmers wanted to plant, we were in the middle of the dry season. And therefore that it stopped farmers from being able to establish immediately. And that brought the relevance of water security that was really needed within St. Kitts and Nevis. Working with a project that was started first by my ICA predecessor, Mr. Merchant, we bolstered a project to go towards the Green Climate Fund, where a consultant was hired to write a concept note to look at water security in view of climate change and to build resilience within the agricultural sector, both looking at on field farming and greenhouse farming. Now, this concept note, we had a lot of stakeholder meetings coming towards the latter end of 2020, and coming into 2021, we are continuing. We had a meeting on the project yesterday with the consultant and the 5 Cs, and hopefully we're looking to target a submission of the concept note to the Green Climate Fund by the end of this quarter. So that is looking very promising. Also, for coming into 2021, there's another Green Climate Fund project that ICA had presented, which includes 9 countries, which St. Kitts and Nevis is one, and this is one of the projects the NIA has supported. So far, we have gotten very promising in terms of the comments from the Green Climate Fund, and we're hoping by the end of this quarter that it would be totally accepted and we would be starting the implementation. And this fund is looking at strengthening the foundation of a climate responsive agricultural sector in the Caribbean. And it will be focusing primarily on the Department of Agriculture and trying to build up the competencies within the department and with the allied cooperatives, and so that, and even for private sector, so that projects could be written and get towards the Green Climate Fund. And this project is 1.2 million among these 9 countries. Also, last year was really hard for ICA, and I'm not sure if people came to recognize, because most of our funding comes from the Latin American countries, which were really hit by COVID coming in from last year. Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. And because of that, a lot of the projects that were previously accepted had to be squashed for St. Kitts and Nevis, really, because we just didn't have the funding. This year is no exception. We still deficit. We're still working a deficit, and what we've had to do is to collaborate with some of the other Caribbean islands to bring forth to get projects. So what we have got so far approved for St. Kitts and Nevis will be looking at strengthening food systems resilience, looking at regenerative agriculture, primarily looking at soil management. Also looking at the circular bioeconomy, and this will be looking to see how we can link agricultural production to marketing and also to product development. And then we were looking at the food safety capacities of small and micro enterprises. And the other one would be also looking for trade capacity building, so for exporting to the fresh and value within the Caribbean region. these projects are small, but so far we're hoping that we can have the linkages that we can learn from the other islands, and so that we're not making the same mistakes and we'll have an easier dissemination of information. Also, there is a apiculture project that was approved through St. Lucia, a Jeff project, which I think $10,000 US is allocated for intervention in St. Kitts and Nevis. And this will be managed through ICA. Also, listening to the presentation today, there are things that stuck out to me. I'm a plant pathologist by profession, so the citrus production, realizing that greening disease is of paramount importance, especially when you're doing citrus production, that I've had a lot of experience with it in Dominica, so I'm 100% willing to make myself available for that. Also looking at coconut production, the lethal yellowing is also another important disease, looking at that. So I'm going to make myself 100% available as you'd like to do that. When you're looking at avocado production, looking to extend your harvest period, so I've had some experience with that also, so I'm making myself 100% available. So ICA continues to pledge its support, and we are always available. We are working with you all. We want to partnership with you as much and as fruitfully as possible. So our doors are always open. You know my number, and I look forward to 2021 working to build St. Kitts and Nevis agricultural production. Thank you.
Thank you, and I now invite Mr. Fleming, followed by Mr. Liu from the Republic of China, Taiwan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, as well as the chairman, please permit me to adopt the protocol that was established, re-established, and reaffirmed. It is a pleasure to be here this morning and given the opportunity, to bring remarks on behalf of the organization as well as the unit here in St. Kitts and Nevis. There is a vein I would like to jump on that some of the earlier speakers, at least those before the break, there's a similar vein, and that was, if you guys paid attention, there was a lot of spiritual or biblical principles that was tied to the Trust Agenda 21. And I really want to come from a similar position. Oftentimes, a character trait of the good Lord himself is that he allows difficult circumstances and hardships in our personal lives as well as nations right through history, and it's often to reorient us, often to, if you really look at it, there's grace in it, and out of it springs forth life, refocus, and investment in the things that are priority. With that, and recognizing that in the world that we live in, and again promised, as we see in scripture, in some cases things aren't going to get better. The unprecedented is going to be a norm that we're going to keep facing, whether it's going to be pestilence, diseases, or the climate, as was alluded to. But one of the things that we are seeing here, which I'm privileged to be part of, is this reorientation, this focus, this coming together of key sectoral partners into a cooperation that I believe as we invest in, we could only have fruitful returns. As I bring greetings from on behalf of the organization, the Caribbean Agriculture research and development institution. I want to thank you, sectoral partners, for your patience to us here as a unit, as we have been, if I'm very honest, very modest and slow to deliver some of the, the things that we've been relied upon over the past 3, 4, 5 years or so. The resources and the constraints that we face is only part of it. But I believe as we partner together and we are being led by, yes, there's a reignition of passion and trust, but I see it already even before we've really explicitly said there is a passion and there is a recommitment and refocus, so to speak, here in agriculture. And as I said, I'm privileged to be part of that. So I'm hopeful that as we get the leadership, the backing of the leadership, as well as my colleagues and sectoral partners, the farmers, with their passion, allied agencies, that we could go forward and do what CARDI is being depended upon. And that is to provide information, to provide knowledge through empirical and concrete research and development here in the Federation. So I stand here to reaffirm and recommit our commitment or our responsibility to provide information to the sector to help inform decisions and allied policies and management making towards developing the agricultural sector. And I hope and trust as we do that, again, years from now, and even immediately, we'll be able to reap a bountiful harvest in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
I am told that our time here has expired. Mr. Liu seems he's not in a position to make some remarks this morning. But I am now opening I'm not yielding, but I'm asking our media partners to give us an extra 30 minutes and so that we can have the input of the general body here this morning. And I'll be passing around this microphone so that you don't have to walk too much. I see Director James is eager to make the first comment, so the mic will get to you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, I have to make a comment. Well, I wouldn't, there are many things, but because of the time constraint, I will just really speak to one and allow others. I don't suppose it might have been the fault of the chair, but just to say, in terms of the institutions, right? The FAO, for some time now, do not have a physical office in the Federation. The FAO has a national correspondent, and I have been serving in that capacity. I believe you would not have been aware. So I just want to make some quick remarks in that regard, in terms of some of the things that would have been happening. As mention was made of the work being done on the census. Some of you would have been contacted by even Mr. Atherton, who is here, doing a survey in terms of value-added potential. And that's a survey that has been conducted by the FAO with the view of making recommendations to the government as to the way forward. And I think it has come at a very timely occasion. There's also what you call the country programming framework, which is the work that the FAO will be doing in the medium term. And that is being prepared, and it will be rolled out to the departments shortly. In terms of what might have gone, there was the Amexid, or a coconut project, in terms of coconut rehabilitation, and the FAO has been very instrumental there. There's a CC4, meaning a fisheries project that is being worked on, and also up and coming, something to relate with protected agriculture. So I just thought to kind of like give some information in that regard. I think it would have been remiss of me if I didn't do that. So that is what happens in that case. Very quickly, because I know we're out of time, now I'll put on my other hat as it relates to the Director of Agriculture. And yes, commend you all for what you all are doing, and the guest speaker himself and his passion. I just want to very quickly say that we are in a position, I think, that we have not been in before, where honestly the government and all of us are focusing on agriculture. And as we said earlier, we had a lot of lip service. Now we have resources being placed into agriculture. And I'm looking forward to us really working together, both St. Kitts and Nevis, through our minister and the relevant permanent secretaries, to really move the sector forward. When we come next week at our review and planning, we'll be able to also see what we're doing in St. Kitts, and I'll also be making some suggestions as to how I think we may want to consider. In other words, I think we continue to look at all of the crops that we have been doing and all of the livestock, and we will ask whether it's not a good time for us to focus, spend a little more time on certain things. All of the countries that have become big in agriculture, even when we were big in agriculture, we were focusing on a few things. And perhaps it might be a good time for us to think about that. So, you know, those things we will look at some more. But thanks, and I wouldn't take up much more time because I know time is limited. So I will, you know, be brief on this occasion. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Mr. James, for your intervention at this time. Do we have anyone else interested in making a contribution to our forum here today? Well, I see Mr. Merchant seemingly reluctantly putting up his hand. So, Mr. Merchant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sergeant. Yes, I would really like to commend the department staff for the superb presentation they made this morning. I think they really deserve another round of applause. I would like to choose two words which came out in the presentation by our guest speaker this morning, which I think might be very instrumental and act as a guide for the staff. Trust and confidence. It's very, 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 very important for your clientele to have trust and confidence in you. And I would hope that if, based on your self-evaluation, you feel that something could be done, I would wish to ask you to do it. Because if the farmers do not have trust and confidence in you, the sector would not move forward. So that is in brief. In addition to that, I would like to mention also the role of cooperative. Cooperative is very important. Very, very, very important. Especially in Nevis, where we do not have big farm sizes and rely on farmers to come together in order for them to ensure that we get that critical mass. So I would wish that the department maybe pay some attention to cooperative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merchant, and I am happy that everybody seems to be adhering to the time constraints that we have. And as I wrap up, I'll take the liberty to wrap up. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you for your contribution. And I will not wrap up without allowing the minister to give his remarks. But I'm just saying thank you to everybody. And we are here to work together. And once we work together, once we work with purpose, we can make the difference that we all say that we're here to make. At this time, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary Sergeant. Well, he's not, seems as though he's not capable of wrapping up, so he gave me a chance to do so. It's easy, you know, you could have said that it's all said and done. Let's go and eat something. But be that as it may, it is my pleasure to thank all of you. Every single one. I'm not going to start singling out anyone, but every single one of you would have come here this morning and now into the afternoon to be a part of this Agenda 21 activity. Of course, we would have had, I'm sure, thousands of persons listening and viewing online, and I want to also thank them for following this activity as well. It is indeed an occasion on which all of us can be proud that we have put our hands to the wheel, so to speak. And our hands are at the wheel, and we are saying to ourselves and saying to the nation that we are not removing our hands and we're not looking back. Because the entire nation is depending on all of us who are agricultural enthusiasts, whether we are just lovers of agriculture or perhaps commercial farmers, backyard farmers. All of us have a role to play in ensuring that agriculture continue to attain the heights that we know it can. Now, it's not going to be easy, as most have said before. There are going to be challenges, but of course, the mettle of the man or the mettle of a people can be tested in that regard. And I'm sure we are up to that challenge and up to the test to ensure that we are doing what we must do to protect ourselves, protect our nation, feed ourselves, feed our nation. And so I want to thank you for coming out this morning once again. I see with us Danny Atherton. Yes, sorry. I was going to give you a Dr. Atherton, but I was almost stopped there. But good to see you, Danny. Thanks for coming as well, because you have had many years in agriculture in the past, and I know you still have that burning passion for agriculture, and we want to thank you for all of your effort. You are part of the Agriculture Advisory Committee on the island of St. Kitts, and by extension, you're part of agriculture in the Federation, because once you're there, you're here as well too. I want to thank Mr. Merchant, who spoke earlier as well. He's a consultant with us. He has spent many years in agriculture, and he has a burning desire for agriculture still. I want to say to all young people, not because you see these older gentlemen around still, they're here for a reason, because they're not ready to exit the stage yet in terms of giving up on agriculture, but they're willing to pass on some of their knowledge and expertise to the young men and young women who are thinking about getting into agriculture. And those who are currently in agriculture, I'm certain they would have something to pass on as well. So thanks very much, our allied agencies, ICA, CARI, Republic of China, Taiwan, FAO has some presence here, of course, yes. And indeed, all of the various entities that have come. Mr. Lupinachi, I normally come and eat some of those same local products that you provide for your guests there at Hermitage Plantation. And you should be a good example for all of us and all of the other entities that are in the service industry here on the island of Nevis, and by extension, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, to patronize Mr. Lupinachi's effort and to ensure that we're continuing to eat local, to stay healthy. And by eating local, like I said, local food will be your medicine, and also medicine would certainly be your food and keep you healthy and strong. Let's go on out and have a successful 2021, and let us find ways to overcome the challenges, to mitigate some of those challenges as well, so that when we come back here next year, God's willing, we can have glowing reports. And then, of course, what would that translate to? Strong and vibrant agricultural economy here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you very much. There's some food, I believe, that is available. Oh yes, I thought so. We can't have a session without something to eat. So have yourself an embellishing lunch. Enjoy it. Having a lot of local stuff, I'm sure too, yeah. And I want to wish you a safe journey back to your respective destinations. Thanks for coming. A happy and healthy 2021 is wished to all of you. May God bless you always. Thank you very much.